Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to the 8 Dimensions of Wellness. Today we have special guests here today. We have officers from different communities. They're here to actually learn a little bit about what we deal with daily on a mental illness basis. We're actually here to teach each other. This isn't just about them learning. This is about us learning as well. This is about us learning how to interact, what our responsibilities are with a mental illness, and how we interact with the police. I'll give you the page in a second. This is not a class to be afraid in. We're going to have an interesting topic today. Today we're going to talk about sex. Yay! Who wants to talk about sex with me? How come everybody gets quiet? Huh?
Not a single hand?
Well, not a single hand went up. Okay. Actually, that's not uncommon with mental illness. It's not an uncommon practice. So, we're going to touch bases on exactly what the difference between sex and intimacy is. We're going to keep it clean. We're going to keep it clean. No personal experiences, please. I would hate to have to gouge my eyes out with the visual. But we're going to discuss the facets of this domain and why it's important. This is an important domain for all of us. We wouldn't be here without, the word. I'm just kidding. You wouldn't be here. It's a necessary thing for society. And just because you're mentally ill doesn't mean you don't have desires. We have desires that have to be fulfilled. So that's why this is a necessary subject that we need to talk about. Again, we're going to keep it clean, and we're not going to get personal, but we're going to discuss the ins and outs of intimacy and sexuality. Okay? We're going to discuss it. Okay. What is the difference? Give me your definition, in my opinion, of what intimacy is versus what sex is. David, what do you think the differences are?
Well, I think intimacy is actually connecting with someone else on a mental level more so than on a physical level.
Absolutely.
And sex is more like the physical act.
Right.
Okay, and it's also can be on the mental level too.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think that the sex is the physical aspect of it, and the intimacy is part of the mental aspect of it. Both of them are connected.
All right, very good. I agree with that. Both of them are very, very much connected. We like to think that we're being fulfilled in both areas. And with this domain, we're going to see. We're going to see exactly where you stand as far as this is concerned. Where are you when it comes to your sexuality and your intimacy? Are you achieving? Do you receive it? Would you like to receive that type of love and intimacy? We're going to talk about that. So, everybody put their embarrassment away, and everybody turn to page 180. 180. When I get that feeling, I need sexual healing. Who made that? Marvin Gaye. All right, that's the first bullet we see when we open this book.
Do you have the fair book?
I don't.
Okay.
Oh, can y'all two share? Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Private pleasures, the domain of intimacy and sexuality. Amanda.
Y'all ready?
Yes.
Let me try not to blush. Intimacy and sexuality are important but seldom discussed areas of recovery.
Wow.
The National Summit of Mental Health Consumers and Survivors, held in Oregon in 1999, polled attendees to see what their top priorities were for supporters in their recovery process, and sexuality was voted one of the most important. However, the mention of mental health problems and sexuality in one conversation can lead to very negative reactions. Some people seem to believe those of us with psychiatric disorders should not be sexual beings. We are often socially segregated by gender, and we endure lack of privacy in institutional and treatment settings. Many of us feel oppressed as sexual beings through side effects of medications, sterilization, professionals, or family members advising us against forming intimate or sexual relationships. Lack of space for intimacy within residential settings and many other ways our sexuality is ignored or demeaned. The greatest and most healing service that can be offered to people with psychiatric disabilities is to treat them with respect and honor them as human beings. This means honoring us in our full humanity, including our sexuality and our desire to love and be loved. Patricia E. Deegan, National Consumer Leader.
All right, keep going.
Stressed, insecure, embarrassed, sex. Just the mention of the word sex or sexuality causes most of us to have a reaction. Many of us feel uncomfortable or embarrassed by our sexuality. Why is sexuality such an uncomfortable topic? Concerns such as lack of sexual experience, the negative reactions we have felt by our family and helpers, or concerns around your sexual orientation can impede open, frank discussion about our sexuality. Sometimes we avoid discussing sex and sexuality because of our cultural heritage, religious upbringing, or family taboos. If you feel uncomfortable discussing sexuality, you are not alone. Most Americans find sexuality embarrassing. Embarrassment is a common experience shared by many people.
Who's embarrassed about their sexuality or about sex, period? Why?
We ain't getting anything.
Well, again, it depends on what you're looking at. Are you looking at the physical act? Are you looking for the emotional gain that you get from it? Of course, we may not be active at this point. We may not be. We may be. There are responsibilities that come along with sex and your sexuality. We have to learn what those responsibilities are. We all are deserving of love, absolutely. And we all want that connection of intimacy. Everyone wants it. Everyone deserves it. Whether or not it's happening is the question. But you're human. We're all young. We're vibrant. Boom. You know, it's on our minds. It's in our heart. It's what we think of. And you're not a horrible person for having these thoughts. These are very natural emotions that we need. We need these emotions to survive. This is one of your domains, and probably one of the most important domains of them all. Because again, it's been happening since the beginning of time. We've all been involved since the beginning of time. Now, what is it we need out of a relationship? I love to have intimacy. I love to walk hand in hand in the park, having long conversation, picnics, all the things that come with intimacy, holding hands, foreplay. All these things are necessary when it comes to this domain. And we have to learn exactly what's in our soul, what it is we need, what is it we want. And we have to assume the responsibility of our actions with the physical act. We have to worry about STDs. We have to worry about pregnancy. We have to worry about, what else? We have to worry about when the physical act. We have to worry about ourselves. So, this is not a dirty subject. This is not a taboo subject. This is a subject we can talk about, even though we are spiritual. Bob goes to church. I go to church. We're Catholic. So we have a certain spiritual responsibility as well. So we have to take all that in consideration. But sexuality, who's comfortable in their sexuality? I am. You know, I'm very secure as a man. I enjoy being a man. I enjoy the things that come with being a man. I'm glad I don't have to have a baby. Now that would hurt. But I enjoy the facets of being a man. What about you? How comfortable are you in your sexuality? Bob, how comfortable are you?
What I want to
explained to you before.
Mhm.
Sorry I interrupted the group.
That's okay.
What I was gonna tell him, if that man wanted to have that, I could share mine with him.
No, you're fine. Just
As well.
go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
You know, like you mentioned before, I'm Catholic, and I
Mhm.
attend Mass every Sunday, every day.
Absolutely.
And I do prayers for other people.
Okay, you do.
And I do it late at night in my bedroom.
Okay.
I'm on my bed late night with my bedroom light turned on. That's my private way of doing it.
Okay.
And I do my book of Catholic prayers too. at night.
Okay.
Now, when I'm at church, I do prayers, but I do it in my thoughts because I can't do it verbally around a crowd of people.
Okay.
But I do it in my thoughts. I know God can read it.
All right.
But since I am trying to fulfill my obligations as those options as being a Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
mind if I don't comment, do you?
I don't mind. Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't mind. I just want you to know that
See, I'm a conservative Catholic.
I am as well, but I'm human as well.
Yeah.
Just because I have a mental illness doesn't mean I don't experience the facets of life. We all do. And this is one of those domains that we experience on a daily basis. Even if we don't pursue the action, we think about it. We're not bad people for thinking about it. This is part of everyday life. And you're alive, Bob. You're alive. You are a young, handsome man, and we have desires. You're not a bad person for trying to fulfill those desires and stand within your religious belief. Our next domain will be spirituality. So, in respects to that, of course, I'd like to wait till I get married again to preserve my spirituality. Of course, I'd like to be with my wife and bear children and all the things that comes with this domain. But let's be honest, we're young. We don't always make the right decisions. We have to be responsible for the actions, like I said, but we're young. We're desirable. Hey, let's live a little bit, Bob. Live. Don't be afraid to live. Don't be afraid to address your sexuality. What I like, who I like, why I like them. These are things that we have to ask ourselves. So don't allow it to embarrass you. That's all I'm saying to you, is that this is a necessary evil. And we do think about it. And we're not bad people for thinking about it. That's all I'm trying to tell you, okay? What are you going to say, Jeff?
I think, I don't know an easy way to say this, but I think I'm waiting on intimacy
Mhm.
rather than sex.
Absolutely. Me too.
You know, I've had enough sex in college and,
Mhm.
you know, it's just, and I was married once, it's just not the same.
Right. Right.
And that's really all I got to say.
What do you think you're missing?
Love, intimacy.
Intimacy. All right. Give me a description of what you think intimacy means to you. What does intimacy mean to you?
Like you said, walking in the park,
Mhm.
being around, waiting for marriage. That's
Yeah.
what it means to me.
Absolutely.
You know, I just, I just don't think I want to do it again until I get married.
Absolutely. That's a good goal to have. That's a good goal to have. And you know, that's something that we all should consider before we make a commitment such as sex. Before you make that commitment, know what you're getting into. Know the responsibilities of it. Know that you're not a bad individual for seeking such things, but we're young.
It's hard.
It's hard. It is. It's hard to say yes to it, and it's hard to say no to it.
I've been at Summit for 6 years and I don't get to go out, so
Right.
you know, it's just kind of.
And that was part of what this this paragraph said. You know, we're oppressed because of our living situation, because of the amount of people we have around us. We don't have time to, you know, kind of make the time for it. It's always a difficult process for us when we're in such an environment. So we have to keep that in mind as well. You know, dig.
Well, in my case, I'm both physically and mentally disabled. And people keep saying, well, why don't you find a man to take care of you? And usually I start laughing when they say that. And they also say, women who are handicapped shouldn't have children. That is something that's been impressed by the churches and society itself, because
Absolutely.
they're afraid of another handicapped person being born
Right,
and living off, they say living off the system, but I did work for 20 years before
right.
I finally got a diagnosis. I had so many of them that it was pitiful.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I and myself physically can't have children due to trauma in the past.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, and it also affects the sexual life as well.
All right.
So, you have to learn, those who have double disabilities have to learn a way to get around it and to find a man or a woman that will be intimate, but yet understanding that when I say no at this time, I mean no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no means no. No means no. Not everybody has the same desires that we have. So we have to respect one another's decision on, you know, what their choices are. We have to be respectful of that. So it's not something that we can impose on people. I can't impose the fact that I have desires on someone. You can't impose that on them. It has to be a 50-50 mutual thing. That's why it's called intimacy, because it's something that's shared amongst two people. Something that we look for, we look forward to. I love being intimate. I do. I love the fact that someone finds me desirable. I like the fact that I find other women desirable. I think that's a very natural emotion for us to have, is to find people desirable. Now, do I want to experience with everybody? No. No. My experiences are, I'm not going to say limited to, but I only direct my experiences, or have my experiences, with someone that I care about, someone that I've gotten to know. Friendship. Friendship is the most important part of this relationship, is you have to be friends with somebody. It's easy to go and do something with someone you don't know, but it's more rewarding to know someone and to experience this with someone that actually knows you, know exactly what you want, know how to please you, and you know how to please them. So again, we have to also learn what the responsibility goes with this domain as well. So not just the act, but what responsibilities we have when we want to enter into this domain. Okay, Melvin.
Yeah.
All right. Intimacy. What does that mean to you?
Low volume
Uh-huh. Keep going.
of expression.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it. Okay. You express yourself through intimacy.
When you say intimacy, it's not a rush, loud thing. Like, yeah, it's nothing like this.
It's not
almost
rushed.
Like you're controlling the volume of what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
If you're whispering, that's even more to the point.
Okay. All right. Justin.
I guess it's just like any of the domains we went over.
Mhm.
You gotta change your ways.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's no good if you don't, but especially with mental illness, it's hard for us to, you know, do this.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And there are other I'm not going to say avenue, excuse me. What I'm trying to say, there are other obstacles that get in our way when it comes to intimacy and sexuality. One, for me, and I'm going to say it, with my mental illness, sometimes I experience erectile dysfunction. That is a serious side effect of the medication that I take. So not all the time do I feel like being sexual. Not all the time can I be sexual. That's one of the side effects of the medication that I take. So I have to keep that in mind as well. But other times, I'm human and ready to go. The desire is there for me. The need is there. The want is there. Everything is there. And, you know, the vibe we share is there. So we experience something more than just sex. It's more than just sex. It's about experiencing the full Monty of the practice. Everything. Yes.
Do you think someone with a mental illness is, it's harder for us, or is it?
It could be. It could be. I think we allow it to be a lot harder for ourselves than it is. Some of the things we experience as a result of our medication and our illness does stand in the way. The fear of intimacy is there. It's there for me at times, the fear. But these are things we have to overcome. We have to be able to stand tall and be proud of what we want and how we are to experience it. So, it's more than just an act. It's life. This is life. And we're all a part of this life. We all want to have a good, loving life, a good, active life. This domain is part of that life. This domain touches. If sex wasn't a part of our life, we wouldn't have children. Procreation, everything that's involved in the practice of this domain. So we look at every aspect of it. Who has another aspect that maybe I missed? Maybe I missed something and
I'm going to reference a movie. Reese Witherspoon was in this movie called Wild.
yes.
She lost her mother. She was married. I believe she had kids in the movie. But the other side of sexuality, she was over-sexual.
Okay.
I guess the trauma of losing her mother, whatever happened, she became extremely promiscuous, cheating on her husband. She was going to random, anybody she saw.
Right.
So there's that kind of darker side of
Absolutely.
sexuality where, just attention or just the urge and, how that affects the rest of your family. And
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's important to kind of realize that that's a thing too when you have trauma as well in the past. Like it can go both ways. Like you can be completely adverse to, sexual things and intimacy, or you could be like hypersexual and like really looking for it and going after it.
absolutely. And as a matter of fact, the impact of trauma on sexuality is actually the next section that we're going to read, that we're going to have Amanda read. That's part of it. And I want you to take a listen to exactly what she's saying. And see if it bears any resemblance to you or anyone you know. So, all right.
Some of us find intimacy and sexuality very difficult, and we choose to avoid it because we have experienced past trauma, sexual abuse, or have memories of being involved in a bad relationship. Many of us have suffered trauma and abuse, whether physical, sexual, or emotional. Some of us have difficulty being present in our bodies and participating in sexual activities due to experiences of sexual abuse in our lives. The experience of childhood sexual abuse can give rise to depression and other health and mental health problems. It is important for us to share any history of victimization with our healthcare providers. If you and your significant other find intimacy and sexuality difficult, you may want to seek professional counseling. It is important that we do not feel ashamed of our sexuality or allow past abuse to ruin our ability to be sexual beings.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. Go ahead and finish that and we'll taper off for a minute.
All right. Being open with our feelings and expression of our sensuality is an important part of overcoming stigma and fear about sexual experiences. Working toward healthy sexuality can be an important part of our journey of recovery. Talking with peer travelers and guides about our own experience of intimacy can also be valuable in recovery. We can learn to use our inner strengths and our values to open ourselves to experience greater intimacy and love. Being open and willing to include sensuality, intimacy, and sexualities in our lives can be an important part of having a life worth living. On the other hand, some people find that sexuality is not an important aspect of recovery. Each of us has to decide how important sexuality is to us.
Yeah, we do. We have to determine what it is that we seek in life. And this is one of the domains that we do seek. And it's important for us to satisfy that need. It is important for us to discuss it. We have to get rid of the shame and the stigma of sexuality. We have to be able to know ourselves, and I know what I want. I do know what I want sexually. I'm sure that every experience to me is a new and fulfilling experience. It's not just something I do because I can, because it's offered. The movie that he spoke about, sometimes we become a little too promiscuous. I think I had that issue when I was in my manic state. Because I was in a manic depression, I was making bad decisions, and sex was one of them. That's one of the reasons now that I make it a point every month, every 6 months to be tested for HIV. My sexual habits 10 years ago wasn't as good as they are now. And because of that, I have to be responsible for what comes next. And HIV is a fear for me. But I have to get tested. I have to allow myself to get tested so I don't put anybody else in jeopardy. So that's part of the responsibility of having sex. Pregnancy. Sure. Growing up, we all pretty much had scares with pregnancy. I know I have. Had a pregnancy scare once or twice. That's because we were being irresponsible. That's because we didn't know enough about what we were doing. We knew that we wanted to do the act. We knew that. But we didn't take in consideration what the responsibility of that action would be. And that's something we need to know. That's something you need to sit down and you need to mull over before you commit to such an act. It's a dangerous world now. Just having sex anymore cannot just be the final outcome. It could be something a lot more detrimental. STDs we have to worry about. Practicing safe sex. All these things. I'm not going to ask you what your practices are. We don't need to know that. But we need to know as individuals what we will and will not accept sexually. So I want you to contemplate over that. We're going to read the sexual expression and psychiatric medication. Again, that's one of my difficulties is the side effects from my medication. So, having said that, Amanda, one more section and then we're going to work on goals.
All right.
All right.
Sexual expression and psychiatric medication. Sexual functioning, performance, and fulfillment are influenced by many of the drugs used to treat psychiatric disorders. Many medications prescribed for our psychiatric symptoms, psychotropic drugs, can have serious consequences on reproductive capabilities in every stage of our sexual response. Medications can decrease our libido, sexual drive, make it difficult for us to achieve orgasm, and make us feel apathetic and disinterested in sexuality or intimacy. Some of us feel that these common side effects should be labeled on medication. Patricia E. Deegan invited a group of people to discuss how mental health services impact sexuality and the capacity to love. One person discussing the side effects of medication stated, "I have the problem that my medication gives me, which is premature ejaculation. They keep telling me, you have to be on this medication, there's no other medication you can be on, you have to accept this side effect. I don't think I should have to accept this side effect. They want me to commit sexual suicide." If you are having sexual functioning or performance problems, talk with your doctor or healthcare practitioner. Be sure to discuss your medical history and ask about possible drug interactions. Your health practitioner may suggest a different medication or treatment. You may also want to learn about alternative or integrative health approaches that may help you have a fulfilling sexual life, even with the serious impact of medications. If you're taking medication that has a negative effect on your sexuality, you may need to work harder at intimacy in your relationships than someone who does not take medication. Identifying what turns you on is key to sexual fulfillment and vitally important if medication hinders your sexual experience.
Okay. Again, the medication that we take, sometimes it doesn't allow us to be fulfilled. And I think that's a shame. I think it's embarrassing. It's very embarrassing, when I can't perform. That's very embarrassing. But I think when you have an understanding partner, that makes all the difference in the world. So not only do you just have a conversation with your doctor, have a conversation with your partner. Again, be on the same page when it comes to this experience in this domain. Understand each other. Ask what it is that's fulfilling to your partner and vice versa. Find out what's fulfilling to you. Is it possible to be satisfied? Is it impossible? What the effects of medication will have. We need to know these things. Okay? Who takes medication that have side effects to that degree? I do. It's embarrassing. It is truly embarrassing. But
I don't think it's embarrassing to other people, it's embarrassing to yourself.
it's embarrassing to me, absolutely. I pride myself on not how well I perform, but the fact that I can and I enjoy it with the person that I care about. And I like to share that with my partner. And sometimes I can't. So that's a little disappointing to me, that I'm disappointed within myself. I'm sure my partner understands, but that affects you mentally. It does. That can aid in depression as well, when we're not fulfilled. We sometimes allow ourselves to be depressed by it. So our mental illness is affected by our lack of pleasure. The libido doesn't work all the time when you're on certain medications. We need to know that. We need to know exactly what's going on with our bodies when we take certain medications. We need to discuss with our doctor what these medications do to us. So, we need to learn about ourselves. We need to know exactly what it is we seek and why we seek it. I challenge you guys to learn what intimacy is. Experience it. Don't be afraid. Don't be embarrassed. You know, hey, again, you're young. Everyone at this table is young. Young enough to enjoy pleasure. Everybody at this table. No one at this table is dead. Now, what it is, how far we go, is our choice. Sometimes we have disabilities that don't allow us, like Dee Dee spoke of. That's understandable. And whoever you're with have to take that in consideration. So, Bob.
Sorry, I don't interrupt Greg yet. I am starting to approach old age.
Okay, you're still young, Bob.
Once you reach 60,
Mm-hmm.
that's considered the beginning of old age.
Once you reach 60, life just begins.
Because I turned 56
Okay.
in June.
Okay.
So in about 4 years from now, I'm still middle age, but not beginning of middle age.
Right.
But you could say once I reach 60, I'm starting old age.
But Bob, you are still alive. You still vibrant. You still have needs and expectations. I'm not telling you to go out and do something crazy, but these are needs that we have to fulfill. This is a domain. Again, these are domains we live by. And it's okay to live by this particular domain. This is not something that should be embarrassing for the rest of your days. This should be something that we acknowledge, we seek if we choose to, or we deal with it on the basis that we deal with it on. Okay? All right. It's about 10 after.
Box breathing.
All right. Last week, we talked about recreation and leisure. Not to get off this subject, because we're not off this subject. But we talked about recreation and leisure and some of the methods that we use in order to combat, let's say, anxiety, let's say depression. And one of the methods that I use is the method called the box breathing method. I also use this method before I become intimate and sexually, because it relaxes me. I focus more. It kind of relieves the embarrassment and the anxiety of what I'm about to do. So, I use this method for several reasons. That's one of the reasons I use it for, is this particular domain. I also use it for recreation and leisure, and the method goes as follows. And I want you to practice this method anytime you have that anxiety or depression or the need to just release what's going on in your mind. Meditation is what I'm trying to say. The box breathing method. Anybody want to try it? Want to try it? Okay. It's a 4-count method. You inhale for 4 seconds. You hold for 4 seconds. You exhale for 4 seconds. And you hold that for 4 seconds. So we're going to give it a try. Everybody sit up straight. Take a deep breath in, let it out. Okay, relax. And we're just going to clear our minds. And we're going to take this journey. Okay? So, everybody, inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. All right. That's a method that I use regularly. I use this method for pretty much everything I do. I get so wound up when I'm about to conquer the world or sometimes drive a car in traffic or anxiety, performance anxiety. I use this method. This method works for me. And I challenge you to find methods and ways that works for you. So, this is just something I do because it's available. This is a tool I use when I'm in the midst of my mental illness and I have no direction or nowhere to go or I don't know how to feel. I take a minute, I relax, I breathe. Then I'm able to make better decisions. So again, I challenge you guys to find methods that work for you. May not be that method. That method is difficult to some people that don't breathe right, that have trouble breathing. So, it depends on you as an individual to find a method that works for you. And I challenge you to find that method. That box breathing method is my saving grace. I use that method every day. In the morning, I reflect. I use my box breathing technique. Find techniques that work for you, and you'll live a happier and more satisfied life. All right, it's 11:15. Who know what time it is?
So,
Go time! All right. All right, last week. Yes.
Just kind of changing the subject a little bit. Since we got the officers here, maybe we can talk about something about our symptoms
Okay.
instead of doing goals this week.
All right. Well,
You know?
how about that? How about that? Let me share a few things about my interaction with police. And then I'm going to go around the room and let you share. And then we're going to have the policemen share what their experiences are. I'm sure it's never easy to deal with someone with a mental illness. I'm sure. Some of us are a lot more functional and we understand a little bit more. Sometimes you might meet someone that's in the midst of a disability or a mental illness that we can't control. My experiences with the police have not always been pleasant. I used to be a victim, I think, of racial profiling. I used to get pulled over regularly, more than I care to share with you. I think I was unfair targeted because of my race. And at the time, we have to think about what was going on at the time, the area that I was in. So all that has to be taken into consideration. But my experiences with the police weren't that great. It wasn't until I understood who I was, what I suffered from, and why it was so unpleasant for me in these interactions that I had to actually take a look at myself and see exactly what my responsibility was in the relationship. So, I was always anxious. My anxiety level always kicked up when I was involved in a police stopping. I've been a good guy, so I don't have a criminal record, or I haven't went out and robbed or stole or hurt anyone. But there's always been a certain amount of fear that I've had when it comes to police. Again, I'd rather live in a world with you than without you. But I think I just need you to know that not everyone's a bad person. And when we get stopped, it just makes us feel uneasy. It makes me nervous. Anytime someone approaches me that has a weapon, I don't care who it is, I become a little anxious. So
I think it's real anxiety.
it's real anxiety that
The police
overcomes
stops
me.
us,
Yeah.
Even if it's for a
Whole
speeding
different
ticket.
person.
Even if it's for a speeding ticket. I do feel a certain amount of anxiety. And sometimes I don't understand what my response is going to be or what your response is going to be. So, again, I'm afraid. I'm not ashamed to say that at times. I'm afraid when it comes to police. But, again, I know who I am now. I know what my responsibilities are. We need to know that about ourselves and our mental illness. We need to know, and we need to let the officer know, listen, I suffer from anxiety and maybe a little nervous, a little unsure of myself, but I'm going to be as respectful and do as much as I can possible to assist.
You know, every time I got pulled over, you know, I would shake a little bit, and, or got in trouble or anything,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd ask, why are you shaking? Are you nervous about something? You know, and it's just, it's not our fault.
Right?
You know, it's someone, it's just like cancer, it's just like anything else. We have a mental illness, and it's just, it's so hard sometimes to
Communicate.
communicate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is hard.
Yeah, and
Like, I've been
sometimes,
to jail before, and, you know, the people that check you in, you know, we were all nervous, and they check us twice as much, just because,
yeah,
you know, we look guilty.
yeah,
And it's really, half the people that I know that have the mental illness has been, you know, shaken and anxiety and stuff like that, and then it goes up, it's really bad.
yeah. I think the physical manifestations of mental illness are so important to like put into perspective when you
Mhm.
have an encounter with anybody in a power position.
Yes.
Like I come from a history of trauma, right? So anytime I'm around anybody in a power position that, you know, has kind of control over me in a sense, I start to shake, I start to sweat, I start to act really nervous, I fumble over my words. And so like that is like similar to how you would act if you were guilty, so it's really hard to kind of explain myself in those situations because the physical manifestations are so bad, but I think communication is like the most important thing that you can do
Absolutely.
and like talk to them. So if they're like, oh, why are you shaking so much? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I just suffer from anxiety, like this is how I get. You know.
Okay. Now, if you're doing 90 miles an hour on the expressway and get pulled over,
Then
that's your problem, you know. But when you're involved in, let's say, a police response, we have to explain ourselves. We have to communicate. We have to do a little bit more for ourselves because they need to understand that. They need to know that, and I'm sure they'll take that in consideration. Not every police I've come across has been a hard behind. As a matter of fact, I've had some great experience with police. I like to highlight that as well. That sometimes it's a very pleasurable interaction. And I think we need that at times. We need to be respectful. We need to be respected. I think that's probably the goal. I don't think at the time that I was pulled over that respect was present. That's just maybe how I felt. Maybe it was different. Maybe you guys have a different perspective on it. Let's hear from you.
Well, I come from, like I said, working in the jail, so you don't have weapons. You go there, and my biggest thing and the way I was very successful for me was you treat people with respect,
yeah.
you know, and it worked really well for me.
Okay.
But it's hard for a mental illness person sometimes when they're nervous to treat authorities with respect.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it's not real hard, but I know for different strokes for every folk, you know, but for me, it's kind of hard. For Bob, I don't know, but it's
Yeah.
just really difficult,
It is difficult.
you know? We look nervous, we look guilty, we look out of place,
We do.
you know, especially in jail, and then they put us in down in the mental health ward, and they put us in isolation in our own cell.
That's even
deadly.
worse.
Isolation's deadly.
Being isolated from someone like me who do isolate when they're mental illness is playing right into my disability. So, I have to let you know that putting me in a cell and by myself may not be a great way, but I understand you have procedures. Procedures have to be followed, but we have to look at the individual, especially the individual with the mental illness. What best meets their need? What can I do to make a person with mental illness feel a little bit more comfortable? That's important to us, is feeling comfortable. Even if we did break the law and we have to be responsible for it, we know that. But it doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, and
We're going to get, and then we'll come back. We're going to let one of these two talk, and then we'll get back to you.
When I was psychoaffective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was driving down Montana Avenue, just driving down, thoughts going through my head, and I was going to speed limit, I had nothing wrong there. But all of a sudden, I was going to see a priest, a friend of the family,
Mm-hmm.
about discussing my problem. So, and I said, wow, maybe they're there. It said Cincinnati.com. This is way back in 89,
Mhm.
90. I said, wow, I wonder if they're in control of my brain. And I went in to that parking lot. It was right around the big bend right before you get to I-74, there's a building there.
Yes.
And I went in there. I said, take me to wherever who's controlling my brain. I said, I want this to stop. And I walked over to the elevator, went into the elevator and sat there. I said, I want somebody to stop this, you know. And the next thing I noticed, you know, they're getting excited and all this stuff, and I'm just laying there on the elevator so I couldn't get out. So they couldn't take me out. And I was not being rowdy or nothing.
Right.
And the next thing you know, I don't know how long passed by, I was just lost in thought all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing you know, the policeman's coming in. He says, we gotta take you somewhere else, sir. We can't take you here to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So he sort of like played into it.
Right.
And, but when he handcuffed me, I said, man, those hurt. So you got them on really tight.
All handcuffs are tight.
I know, they hurt. And I told him that all the way down. And
Okay.
he didn't take me to the, wherever they take you to. They took me to the University Hospital.
Okay.
And they tied me up down there.
Oh,
Yeah, all four, my legs and everything.
okay.
Finally, my doctor, who I was seeing at the time, they got a hold of him. I don't know how they found out about it. Maybe I told him or something. And he said, let him go. He's no harm to anybody.
Right.
And so
Okay.
what happened was I was on my way to see someone about my problem. And I was thinking about, well, I want this to stop. And I thought maybe that building had something to do with it. I really thought that at the time.
Right.
And it
As a
was
result of
really-
your mental illness, that's.
Yeah, that was definitely a time where the police reacted in a sane way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some people get violent. I did.
Right, right.
I was completely non-violent, and I think that helped me out a lot there. And it was just a natural thing for me to do. I don't know.
Okay. So let's hear from you. Give me your perspective of what you heard today. And
I absolutely agree with you guys. I work the road, City North College Hill.
mm-hmm.
We deal with a lot of people that have episodes,
Mhm.
depending on what illness they have. It's very nice when they actually tell you what they have,
Mm-hmm.
because that changes how we handle that situation.
That's what we need
You
to
know, if
hear.
there's somebody that is, you know, suffering from schizophrenia, then
Mhm.
it's not necessary for me to put them in handcuffs if I can talk them into sitting in the back of the car if they need to go to the hospital or call the squad. Our chief's very strict about this. This is why we go to this type of training. He makes sure
Mhm.
everybody goes. We have a smaller department with a smaller community, so we get to actually meet everybody. like the one that was originally in here. I
Mhm.
knew her face, I still don't know her name. I'm
CC.
a facial
CC,
person.
Yeah.
But I have talked to her before.
Okay.
You know, they've been good confrontations, but, you know, I have met her.
Right.
So, you know, everybody kind of gets to know everybody at North College Hill when they live there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's a nice thing, so, you know, just by saying, hey, you know, you have this type of illness, we can work around that. But, you know, we get caught into situations that we don't know what's going on. We don't know you, we don't know what's going on, and if you tell us, then we can work with you. You know, I can't speak for other departments, but I do know, you know, our department, you know, we strive off that. We'll listen to that and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you.
I understand.
Let's hear from you right quick, and then we'll get to you, Justin.
I have a different perspective on some of this, and the reason I do is being a female officer, you know, a lot of people, you know, think that they can overpower you.
Mhm.
I deal with the, you know, no offense, guys, you know, I'm in a male-dominated world, so there's, you know, always that, you know, Tony here, I know Tony, I've known Tony for years. You know, you're out in a situation, he proves himself once to all his fellow brother, and he's gold. As a female, I gotta continually do that.
Yes.
Looking at things from your guys' point of view, from my point of view, I know that sounds really confusing. What I was sitting here thinking, and I'm just taking notes for me personally, because this is helping me too. If you do get pulled over, I don't care who you are as far as an officer, we have anxiety too. Because
Yes.
we have no idea what we're walking up on.
I agree.
So the communication, hey, I suffer from schizophrenia, if you're able to tell them, I might possibly be having an episode, that's huge.
Yeah.
You know, because like he said, you know, that, you know, it just makes, it kind of like, we're trained one way, and this kind of like, oh, okay, now I have to rethink this. I mean, it really is how that goes. And to help some of your guys' anxiety is, and this is just from my experience, from what I do now to what I did 11 years before that. And I've talked to a lot of the clients that I had, and some of them were very honest with me, some of them wouldn't talk to me at all, but I, you know, always made sure I knew my boundaries and, you know, to communicate and learn for me, and just to help you guys if you do get pulled over or stopped by an officer. Most guilty people don't act nervous, you know, I mean, so that's kind of a stigma also, that
Absolutely.
it's okay to be nervous and feel a little anxiety. Most, if you've done something wrong, like what you said, what did you do, why are you shaking? Most guilty people don't act that way.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Practice, I guess, right?
Yeah.
whether it's that or just not knowing that they did something wrong.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I hope that statement helps you guys if you do come across an officer. And, you know, we do have anxiety, we just are better at hiding it.
Yeah.
You know, you're crazy to think that I'm not scared trying to go clear a building.
I can imagine.
I've come face to face with a guy with a gun,
Oh, wow.
you know,
It's
that's tough.
all right.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, you know, just trying to flip it around for you guys, I hope that helps.
All right. And we're gonna let you close us out.
All right, well, I'm actually a little different than these guys. I don't do road patrol, we don't do any
Okay.
stops.
Yeah,
I'm
we
a
like you
bailiff.
then.
Well, I'm a bailiff, and part of our duties are, we just execute orders from the judge.
Right.
Serving summons, subpoenas,
Right.
warrants. We look for money, you know, businesses that have defaulted on payments. But then the biggest part of our job is evictions, which nobody likes to do evictions, but landlords, you know, have to, they get orders to remove somebody who isn't paying or is, whatever, destroying property, any reason to get evicted.
Okay.
The only time I am aware of if there's any mental illness is if Excel Development calls us. Where they have, go to, you guys obviously, everybody knows probably Excel here.
Yes.
They call us pretty regularly, so we know going into that, it's a special situation.
Right.
But if it's just a regular, you know, landlord that we don't know, we don't just walk in grab you by the shirt, throw you on the sidewalk, you're out of here. We don't, it's not like that.
Right.
I go up, I knock, and if there's anybody there, I explain I got an order.
Right.
We're doing this. If you, what am I gonna say? If you wanna work with us and you're you're not being belligerent, then
Right.
we can all do this together, but if not, you have to go outside.
Right.
So I treat everybody the same. No matter-
Absolutely.
Obviously, at Excel, I'll have my senses a little
Right.
more
right.
aware, just to, so
Absolutely.
I don't say something to, trigger, I guess.
Absolutely.
But basically just treating, like I said, treating everybody with respect. I know it's a bad situation getting evicted, but we
Yeah.
gotta do it the most safest,
Gotcha.
reasonable way possible.
Okay.
And just being human.
Right.
And if somebody tells me, hey, if I walk in the door and we're gonna do an eviction, if somebody tells me they have this, and this, I need to sit down. Okay, well, you sit down.
And let us,
And plus, like with mental illness, we deal with some hoarders sometimes, and you have to take into consideration, the landlords come in with a crew of people, they just move stuff out.
Right.
They don't break it or throw it off the roof or this and that, but they do move pretty quick. And if we're, in a house that has mental illness, that we're aware of what's important to them, like everything's important, but, say we're moving this room and something in the corner is something that's extra special to them.
right.
We're gonna make sure we handle that with extra care,
Good.
or leave it till the end. We don't wanna
Yeah.
just drag something out,
Right.
sit on the sidewalk while this person's in the back room, having an episode of
Right.
what's been said. So
Yeah.
we take all of that into consideration,
Gotcha. So today was our day to talk about sexuality and intimacy, and we did that. And I think everybody did a great job of hiding their embarrassment, but I think everybody did a great job. We know why it's necessary to have these feelings. And I like to thank the police that came as well, because they help us understand what our responsibility is as the victim. We have to know what our responsibility is. We have to know how to interact. This isn't just about them, this is about you as well. So, take time to understand ourselves. Next week we'll work on our goals again. We didn't have time to do our goals today, but next week we'll work on goals, and we're gonna appreciate this weekend. We're gonna go out and we're gonna do something to aid in our recovery, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna discuss it. So I challenge you guys to find your own goals this week and come back next week and discuss them with me. Okay, and that we are out.